Hello, my name is Heather Dolland Tamam, and welcome to season 2 of Live, Learn, Leverage. I feel like it has taken me absolutely forever to get here because it kind of has. When I was finished with season 1, I was very much with intention as I'm thinking, okay, how am I going to serve in a way that really allows individuals who are listening to get what they're seeking. And I certainly don't have any kind of crystal ball, so I have no idea what anyone is looking for. But staying true to my title, which is Live, Learn, Leverage, my entire premise is just understanding and valuing our lived experience because for many of us, we don't suffer from a knowledge issue. We suffer from a positioning issue because we don't value the experience that we have. We think that all the things that we do, we take all of that stuff for granted because you do it all day, every day, and you don't think it's particularly special. And unfortunately, as a result of that, you treat it as such and you don't create the opportunities for yourself to leverage the knowledge that you actually have. And so, on this platform, as an individual who shares lived experience, it is really just my genuine dream, my goal, my passion, and my purpose to provide you with those tools, the the knowledge base, the skill set to the best of my ability so that you can take that next step. But I realized that in order for me to be able to genuinely serve you at the fullest capacity, I am only one person who has lived only one life. And so for this season, the intention is to bring on different guests so that they can share their knowledge because it is so much better to have other individuals and know what their stories are. Our perspectives, some of them are very different, others are the same, but the point is that I always say, we're all at different paths of the same, at different parts of the same journey. Some of us may be just a little bit further ahead, others of us are further behind. But the entire point is that there is value in all of the knowledge that we possess. Every single thing that you have experienced is a stepping stone into that other section, that other segment of your life. As an individual who has used books, so for those of you who know me, of course this is our first time on video on Live Learn Leverage is concerned. Specifically, this podcast was primarily all audio, but now I genuinely wanted to introduce the video component to just increase engagement and help you understand and see who this person is that you're speaking to. But I have used, so all of these are books that I have written throughout the years. This was my very first book. It was called Discovering the New York Craft Spirits Boom. This is a book that essentially allowed me to pivot from an environmental consultant into the alcohol arena. Then when I ended up in that space and I had my first company and I started to get a lot of international and domestic brands that were interested in working with me, I began to realize that there were a lot of challenges that a lot of these companies faced. The other thing that I realized was that and it was an invaluable business lesson, and that was that the only thing worse than having no client was having a bad one. And so that was when I wrote Before the Glass, Things to Consider When Entering the Booze Business, because I knew that it was important that any potential client that I was going to onboard, they understood exactly how I thought. And once you got this book, so I wrote this book, believe it or not, in a weekend. I was so ridiculously upset. And you would see that I have a lot of different graphics in here that help honestly just to expand the book, me just being completely real. And because at that point, Amazon, I think, needed like 100 pages to be able to bind the book. I mean, it has like a very slim cover. But one of my tricks of the trade essentially for shifting careers is writing books. And so I wrote this meant really just to qualify my clients so that once they read the book, they understood this is how I think. We are completely clear on this is how I do business, so we can safely write a contract and move forward without having issues afterwards. But it helped me realize the way that, again, we can use books to have individuals and or clients just understand what our thought process is, but more importantly, so that you can identify your right fit client and your right fit client can identify you. Then the pandemic comes along and my alcohol business is totally done. My clients have lost literally half of their accounts overnight. What are we all going to do? My apartment looks like a liquor store with all of the countless numbers of brands. And at that point, I ended up shifting life into being a content creator. But very quickly, I began to just feel dissatisfied because I knew that I had so much knowledge. So my first degrees were in architecture and environmental technology. I have segued into the alcohol business, leveraging my business development skills, and that's a whole other story for a different episode. And now I have ended up here where I'm no longer an environmental consultant. I'm no longer in the alcohol space. Honestly, if I'm being completely honest, I was kind of just over it also. I did not want to be in the alcohol space either. I was also feeling like I was hitting a wall because a lot of the challenges that my clients were experiencing were things that I could not help them with. And I needed to be able to meet them much earlier in the process in order for my knowledge in particular to be meaningful. That, of course, did not happen because, like I said, COVID came along and it did what it did. And I become a content creator. And as I am struggling, trying to figure out what I'm going to do because I just became tired, being a natural designer, photographer, a person who is a true artist is a legitimate gift. I will tell you, it is not a natural talent that I possess. I have learned everything that I do. I am very much self-taught, and I got to that point where it was not satisfying my soul. I had a lot of amazing opportunities as far as working with brands and doing different engagements and really hired by really amazing companies, and that was wonderful. But I knew that there was still more. And so that was when I wrote Pivot. Pivot came out in July 2023. It's called Pivot because life doesn't always go as planned. And when I wrote Pivot, it was just me sharing everything because I'd gotten to that stage where I'm like, I know that I did not go through all of this for no reason. There is value to all of the knowledge that I have. The problem was I didn't know how to leverage it. I didn't know what to do with it. And so I decided I'm just going to share it in a book. And this book really did feel a bit like throwing spaghetti against the wall and just seeing what stuck. And what ended up happening is that when I started to read the reviews of the individuals, left by the individuals who read this book, it became clear that a lot of people were just very surprised that I was able to shift careers in very different industries so successfully for so long. And to me, I'm thinking, how is this hard? Like, just do it, right? Never occurred to me how people stay stuck. And so as I was reading the reviews, I began to realize, hold on a second, this is a legitimate skill set that I have. I sat and I thought about how did I go through everything? How did I overcome these different challenges? And I was able to create a framework as I assessed what my thought process was, how to be able to leverage the information, the fact that knowledge is transferable. And so all of that essentially culminated into my most recent book, which is Create Your Own Table, A Guide to Discovering Your Purpose. So last year in 2025 was actually when that was my initial intention to start season 2 of Live, Learn, Leverage. But I will tell you, as for many of us, when at the beginning of the year, beginning of 2025, when I was sitting listening to the news and just hearing all of the stories of all of these people who were getting laid off and the turmoil that they were going through, I knew that I had the knowledge to be able to help. And not just that, but there was a colleague of mine or a prior colleague of mine who had gotten let go unexpectedly. And I realized the challenges and just the emotional upheaval that that caused. And I knew I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I have all the answers, but I knew that I had some of them, and the knowledge that I had would be meaningful to those individuals who are just feeling upended and uprooted and they have no idea where to go. Because unfortunately, when you lose a job, you're not just losing a source of income, you're also losing your identity. Because, particularly in this culture, but I would really just gather to say for most, when you meet someone for the first time, 90% of the time, what is the first question that you're asked? If any of you could tell me, or you're thinking about it right now, the question usually is, what do you do? And so if you're suddenly unemployed, your identity has now gone out, has now gone completely out the window along with that job. And so writing Create Your Own Table, it felt very urgent. And I treated it as such because I had also written, which I had discovered as I'm realizing, you know what, I really do need to write a book that is a culmination of all of my knowledge to this point that will be able to serve and serve meaningfully. And I had gone into one of my journals and I was going through just looking at, just trying to get ideas like, what am I going to be discussing? And then I saw a note that I wrote in July 2024 stating that I would start writing my new book on February 1st, 2025. And I was reading that note on February 3rd. So you better believe on February 4th I began. And at the risk of sounding blasphemous as an individual who has written 4 different books, I am not the biggest fan of writing. However, for any of you who know me, you know that I do love to talk, and talking is something that I do very easily and well, if I may say so myself. And so that was when I decided that I was going to go speech to text. And so I ended up transcribing this entire book. I knew that I wanted a book that was at about 50,000 words, which is what you're looking at. And when I spoke, I literally just sat in the corner of my living room and just spoke through the chapters. I knew what I wanted to share. I had complete clarity on the messaging of what was important. And I knew I just needed to get everything out. But I quickly also realized that when I spoke, I could speak easily 16 to 18,000 words in 2 hours. And so because technology is what it is, and sometimes it just does whatever it wants to do, I would record after 20 minutes and stop, let it upload. So the transcript would then upload to the file that I'm able to save, and then I'll continue on. So quite literally in 1 week, I had this book written. I realized since I was going through it at such a tremendous speed, I reached out to my editor, the editor who actually edited Pivot, and I let her know, look, I have this book that's coming. I'm going to need another week or two to just clean it up. But I gave her a date. I think it was something like February 24th, something like that. I could probably go into my account and see when I sent her the file. But it was a promise that I made to myself. And if there's one thing that I don't do, I don't break promises, number one. Number two, I absolutely do not break them to myself. And I kept myself on schedule. I also knew that I wanted this book to be released in May so that during the summer, individuals will have the time to just go through and think through as they're pondering what the next steps are in their lives. And the next step is, so this would have been in January. So this book came out in May. I had someone reach out to me in January, and she said, Heather, I have had this idea for so many years. It's just been in the back of my mind. I saw that you have an upcoming program. She actually saw my name come up for a workshop that I am hosting in July, and she read through my bio, she read the book, and she built that business in 4 weeks, literally following every single step that I shared in this book. And then she sent me the website to prove her homework, because websites are a huge part of the messaging that I share, because we want to be able to control our own narrative. In this day and age, with AI especially being what it is, individuals that have true knowledge and credibility right now, it is so, I mean, it was always important, but I don't think that there's ever been a more important time, where if you have that genuine knowledge, that you really need to take the time to share it and get your name and your information out there. But anyway, I share all of this to say that I really do hope, and it is my fervent wish, that season 2 of Live, Learn, Leverage will genuinely serve you and meet you where you are. So at Dalton, I created Dalton Creative Solutions to be able to support you throughout your professional journey. Again, we are all at different points. As an individual who has shifted careers 3 times, I understand very much what that feeling is like, when you know that you have something in you, that message that needs to be told, but you're not certain how to do that. And so at Dalton, I provide you with that support to be able to help you to gain clarity. That particular program is called the Empowerment Blueprint. But then for those individuals who are far more seasoned and much more experienced, and you've been doing this for a long time, but unfortunately, you may have been neglecting your online presence, because I know how easy it can be to fall into that trap of being busy, and you think that being busy is the same as being visible, but it is not. And again, particularly in this age, where when anybody meets you or there's any kind of real interaction, if they make the determination that they would like to work with you, the very first thing that they're going to do is search. And so now you're being searched in Google, and you're being searched by AI, depending on what people are searching for. And so that is another large part of the services that I offer at Dalton, helping you to support and just improve your visibility, so that you also have more clarity and your clients are completely clear on why you are their right fit solution. Anyway, guys, thank you again for listening to this episode of Live, Learn, Leverage. I hope that everything that I share in this season always serves. And certainly, if you meet me for the first time, welcome. You could certainly go back to listen to season 1. I am sure that the nuggets that I share there would be of value to you as well. And if you have any questions, never hesitate to ask. Put them in the comments. I absolutely check them. Have a wonderful day. Take care. Bye-bye.